If I don't have time, just let me know, Christian.
No, you have time, but don't preach, please.
Well, it's still wrong, but I gotta do what I gotta do.
Oh, God.
I'm gonna tell a testimony. Testimony, is that all right, Christian?
You know, testimony service got canceled because people testify too much. Don't over-testify.
Well, the whole Bible is just a testimony service. So what are we doing?
Go ahead, Pastor.
So, I have a baby sister, Christian, I'm very proud of. She's in her second year of college. Her name is Isabella. And she calls me pretty often because in her school, she goes to NYU. In her school, there's a lot of discrimination. The Asian Indian kids are always telling her that she is a DEI student and that she doesn't belong on the campus. Now, Asians. And I have to continuously tell my sister the history of this country so that she can get through class to class, because it's not easy. So the reality of it is, Ashley and I, we went to Yale, and there was this student debate talking against DEI, and he was an Indian kid, and said, "I wish I could have earned it." Wow. Indian kid at Yale saying, arguing against DEI, they just don't know the history of this country. Without affirmative action, the groups that were discriminated against, Christian, would not have the access and privileges to even compete. DEI programs allow us to compete because discrimination is rampant in this country. So back to my sister, Christian, right? So proud of my sister Isabella. She graduated. She was probably like the 4th top student in the school when she graduated from high school. Then she applied to NYU Stern School of Business, and which is like a 30% acceptance rate. Very hard to get, but even smaller than that. And she got in and beat out a lot of her white counterparts. And so she called me saying, "Why are they telling me I'm DEI?" Check this out, Christian. I said, "Isabella," I said, "Mom went to NYU. You're actually a legacy student. You're not a DEI student. They're saying that because you're black. But we have beat them at their game time and time again, even when they put hurdles in front of us that they don't put in front of their own kids. So the reason why they're doing us like this is because we're breaking through the cracks, even though they haven't given us soil to grow. We're growing without sunlight. We have grown without water, and they are scared because they're becoming the minority. So how do you continue to rule in a country that you're the minority and you're getting beat at the game that you rigged to win? So Isabella is winning, and I'm here to tell you, you're a winner as well. That was it. That's a testimony right there.
All right. And now I'm going to close with this. I told him don't preach, and he still preached. This is why testimony service got canceled. Anyway.
Welcome to the Gilchrist experience. I thought you would enjoy that, Ron. I know you never get to see these things. But you're explaining what DEI is. And what happens is most people don't really understand what's going on. So an explanation like that, how it touches you personally, is of value to all of us. Because you've been at war with for the maintaining of DEI for what? Tomorrow's the 70th week. So hearing from you a description of what personally happens to you with this DEI, it clears up to all of us how important this factor is. Especially an Asian complaining about DEI, when through affirmative action is the only reason all these people got to America. Every foreigner got here through our struggle with affirmative action and slavery and all the rest of it. Knowing our history, you're teaching history to people. That's why I want you to know how important this is, and how important your struggle is, or your presentation. So give us an idea of what's really the explanation for DEI. Welcome to the show, brother.
Well, thank you, and it's always a pleasure to be on with you guys, the Gilchrist experience with you and Mr. Graham. I, was explaining a personal situation, but I'm sure we all have stories of discrimination. The reality of it is, when it comes to DEI and them trying to coin what it is, Dr. King, um, through the Dr. King movement that we practice here at the National Action Network, of just telling truth to power and fighting against those that come against us, we have taken up this fight of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we have begun not only picketing in front of Bill Ackman's office, we've started to announce that we might be boycotting Pepsi as an organization. And we're really bringing the fight straight to Wall Street. Well, why is DEI such a big problem? We don't get into particular jobs in this country or schools, not because of our DNA, but because we were denied, and we continue to get denied, even though we qualify and are overqualified. So DEI is a program that looks at the data and makes sure that everyone can be counted in the struggle. There are many Asian Americans who are white adjacent that don't understand that it's not by merit so much that you get to places, because we have been not only the engineers of this country, we not only made this country the richest country in the world, we were then told after doing so that we were less than, that we were subpar, subhuman. And so we've seen these laws be put into place if you don't fight back. We will not go back as a people to a time of where we were called three-fifths of a man. And so seeing the civil rights being rolled back little by little is very dangerous, because we've been there before. During the rally, I was talking about the importance of not going back to a time of where America recognized different groups of people, and said and gave certain stamps of approval. And if we allow ourselves as Americans to be divided and conquer, the white supremacist groups will win. If we look at Nazi Germany, the way Hitler was able to become the terror that he was certain groups were quiet while other groups were marginalized. And so it's important that we not only sound our alarm, and we've been talking about diversity, and diversity means all of us, because we all need to stand up. But they've been very good at dividing us. So when I was talking about some of these Asian students, or even Asian coworkers who just don't feel, I guess, they don't feel in proximity with my story or our story, even though the history says so. It's all because they are trying to rechange the story, rechange our history. And so it's important that we stand with the institutions that continue to tell our history. It's important that we continue to tell our story, even though they're trying to tear it down across all of America. It's important that networks like yours, like this program, continue to tell our story. We know that we fought in World War II and all these wars. And when we went to World War II, Graham, right, we knew that when we came back, the Germans and the Japanese that we were fighting had more rights in our own country than us.
Talk about
So
it.
the question was, who was the enemy, right? And we understood that we're fighting for our country, but our country is treating us like the enemy. And so that's why the civil rights era is so important. And people don't understand that the rights that we have in America weren't given to us. We had to fight for it, and unfortunately, we have to fight to keep it.
That's so true. You know, we think about DEI and the fact that, I took a test to go into the police department. Not a big deal. But I got a phone call from NYPD a month later, and I asked them, I said, well, why are you calling me? Because I took a test for the transit police. And so we don't have a current list, but we need people, and you're on the top of their list. They were taking the top 10% of the list. And I declined the position with NYPD because I didn't care for NYPD. But I was called by the transit police. I went in. and at the physical. And here's another thing that's important, Ron. I have my pension because of Adam Clayton Powell. That's the person I credit for enabling me to get the job with the Transit Police Department.
And that was the 70s, right?
I went in 51 years ago, but it was Adam Clayton Powell that demanded that black people be hired, Negroes be hired by the Transit Authority, even as porters, as railroad clerks. There were no black people. So he forced the integration of the Metropolitan Transit Authority back in the day, in the 40s and 50s. Now, I go down for my medical exam, and the doctor is telling me, he's palpating me, and he says, oh, Mr. Weatherspoon, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to decline the job to you. I said, well, why? He said, because you have a heart murmur. What? Now, I was a runner. If I had had a heart murmur, I'd have been dead long before I could have met him. So I realized what's going on here. Let's not be fooled that DEI is going to get us in the door, because racism is still there in spite of DEI. So what they were doing, they were telling black men that they had heart murmurs. So I said to the doctor, I said, you're board certified, right? He says, oh yes, certainly. I said, so you know the difference between the diastolic and the systolic? And he says, how do you know about that? I said, well, you went to school and I went to school, right? Then he says, well, okay, forget about it, don't worry about it. Go get your hearing checked. I said, wait a minute, who are you, Oral Roberts? You told me I have a heart murmur. No, forget about it, forget about the heart. Just go ahead, go ahead. So we need to understand that in spite of the door being cracked open, when you come through the door, somebody is going to be there with a hammer trying to hit you in the head. Because racism is not going away just because of DEI. So we have to be prepared in the process to recognize it, to catch it when it's going on. There was a guy in applicant section that rejected 95% of all blacks and Hispanics who were applying for the job, and he was just a cop.
Well, you go with that same principle today, and you've got Donald Trump in there trying to destroy America with this DEI. Everything's blamed on DEI. The crash in Washington, D.C., in D.C., it was a white woman that was a pilot on
a helicopter.
On a helicopter,
Right.
a white woman. And Trump made it sound like it was a DEI. I was looking for a black person. So that's the whole conversation we're having here. DEI isn't for black people only. It's for everybody. It's for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that includes everybody. And I've got the huddle of Chris explaining DEI. We're going to play that just for clarification of his view on DEI, that same night that the huddle Monday. So let's play that item 3 instead of 2, and we'll come back to 2, which is Mother Z, a little later. I just want to go over this DEI a little bit more.
DEI is a real thing, and I just pray that this man, it's really bad when the President of the United States doesn't even listen to the Supreme Court. Not only does he not listen to the Supreme Court, he's not listening to the people he even put in the court. He got 3 judges on the court. I don't want you to, when the Supreme Court is against you, you know there's a problem. Supreme Court don't go against the president. Normally the Supreme Court upholds what the president said. They told him that he had presidential immunity. Y'all remember that? They said what the president does while he's president, he can't go to jail for when he's done. They said that. But they're saying this man is crazy. And they've been blocking him. No, I mean, basically, they didn't say that out their mouths, but I'm just saying he's a nut. And Trump wants to be a dictator. Trump is talking about doing a big military parade. America, in almost all of its history, y'all have to notice, in almost all of its history, has never had a true military parade. We have never gone parading down the streets of Washington, D.C. with no big old tanks in the middle of it. You will not find one picture like that in America. But you know what countries you find that in? Russia, North Korea, China. You don't find that in a democracy. You don't even find that in England. You know, at least if he was trying to be the king, he would get a horse and carriage. This man wants to be a dictator and wants to have his face plastered on every building in America. Almost every federal building has his face in it. That crazy looking picture. We have never seen a president look at the picture like he's like the devil. It's like, just looks so evil. Every time I see that picture, I get the chills. He's scary looking. Yeah, I'm not scared of him, but he's scary looking. Something is wrong with him. But anyway, we cannot be asleep with this stuff with DEI. People are sleeping on it. And what Reverend Ron said is really right. Affirmative action is where it started. And then it turned into DEI. And what he said about that community, I'm not going to say it again, but that community, we know those communities that think, you know, let's use Baruch, for example. Baruch is a math school. And you know the people that normally go to those kinds of schools, right? And they can be, I'm staying along the lines, I'm not going to say it, but they can be sometimes a little discriminatory. It's serious. They think that they got there just based off of their merit, but not knowing that DEI did play a role in you going to that school. DEI is not a black issue. It's not an Asian person issue. It's not even a woman issue. DEI is everybody's issue except for heterosexual white males. I want you to know that. If you are not a heterosexual white male in America, you have profited from DEI. If you go to a school and you are not a heterosexual white male, you got into that school because DEI. Now, I'm not saying, now this is what I think people don't understand. DEI does not mean that you did not work to get to where you are. Trump has made it seem like anybody that's a DEI hire is not qualified. When half of the black people that have these jobs are probably 9 times out of 10 overqualified for the position that they have.
Did I make it a little clearer? Ron, you still there? I want to play that
I'm here.
because it makes everything clearer to everybody, exactly what's going on. If you're not a white heterosexual male, that's you're profiting from DEI. Now, I just wanted to make that clear. And let's talk about your 70th rally tomorrow, Thursday.
Oh, yeah, well, we've been outside of the office of Bill Ackman, the billionaire, the first billionaire to come out publicly against diversity, equity, and inclusion when he led this campaign against Claudine Gay, who was the first Harvard president of black female of that university. After her ouster, after that campaign, he then said, she's a DEI hire. We need to get rid of this DEI thing. And we, the National Action Network, have been picketing outside of his office for over a year. So we've been on this DEI case for a long time. Ever since then, he tried to get on the board at Harvard. Harvard said no. We also know that Harvard has also kicked back against Trump to force the community to not have DEI. So we know the Harvard University is trying to stand their ground with that. But the National Action Network has a march coming up in August on Wall Street. So this is all culminating to a huge march across the country. So please go to www.nationalactionnetwork.net or dial 877-626-4651 to get in on the action. We're going to the corporate world. We're going to say, if you don't want DEI in your programs, then you don't need to have a diverse income base. You don't need to have a diverse group sewing into you. And so we are going to make that make our voices known in August. And so that's what we're doing. And we're not just screaming, because we do more than that. We're also going to hit them with their pocket hurts. We're now thinking about targeting PepsiCo, because we know that if we boycott and get a small margin, about 5% of folk to stop buying their products, we know they'll go under, and the domino effect will happen. We are also looking at other companies to boycott in this season. It's unfortunate that we're back in a place in time in America where boycotts are prevalent, but we know that Bill Jones, who taught our leader, the Reverend Al Sharpton, the King tradition, he also learned it from Jesse, that boycotts are effective. I know that Graham has had an extensive relationship with Bill Jones when he was alive. So I'm always happy to hear about Graham's stories with Bill Jones.
He's got a bunch.
The
He's got a bunch.
boycott, we have to really look at where we put our money.
Is that why we're going to Wall Street? The boycott Wall Street?
Well, we're going to Wall Street because, DEI is not just in schools. It doesn't just have to do with jobs. It has to do with contracts. And so we know that
pension funds.
We say it again.
The pension funds.
So it's all of that in between, and we know that again when it comes to contracts, often big time city contracts and don't go to us. Again, historically, it did not go to us. We had to fight. And so when we talk about equity, when we talk about inclusivity, when we talk about diversity, we're talking about everybody, as you said, except white heterosexual males. So even with DEI, right? White heterosexual males are still at the top of the food chain when it comes to economics, but DEI programs were helping to close that gap. So some people will come out and say, well, let DEI go. That's a thing of the past. But DEI was working, is working, and it's a great metric of which we can see what a company's doing when it comes to how they treat diverse employment, how they deal with contracts. If you say you don't need DEI, then you don't need to have oversight to see how they're treating different groups of people. And so it's important that we don't go into a system of an American part-time more than what we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I look at this as the Constitution, all men are created equal. Well, we've always abided by the rules, and especially when it comes to rules to love and respect for your fellow man. God being the center of our lives. We all must realize that's the only way we got through slavery and the rest of the stuff. And the rest of the battles that we're fighting now, we're fighting against the demons in the White House. Between Stephen Miller and Trump, we got two bona fide. I mean, you look and study the personalities. And Bev, always hates to watch Trump. But if you sit there and watch the man, you can see that he's crazy. He's out of his mind. He's definitely bonkers. I mean, just sit there and watch him. He repeats himself, the same stories. He lies when he opens his mouth. I mean, just watching him with the new Canadian Prime Minister. It was difficult for him to listen to this $200 billion supposedly Canada is ripping us off. I mean, the figures he comes out with. You just watch him. When are the Republicans going to give up on this man and say he's bona fide crazy before he starts a World War III? I mean, it's insanity. And then we go to Mother Z and seeing a beautiful sister pass away by us being wild and crazy and fighting each other and accidentally killed by a bullet. Now, I was hoping we'd get Ashley and JT on Zoom. I think we need to give her a call or something or see if they're coming on. I asked them to come on at 4. But I'm going to play the video, and perhaps they'll be there to watch it. You are mainstream on this. You might give a little introduction before we go to it. And then we go back to Graham in Brooklyn with the pastors, which you always love to talk about. All right? Because it's God's on our
Artis
side.
Taylor, Sam Proctor.
Yeah.
Who we got, Graham?
You know, the pastorate played a pivotal role in the civil rights era.
Mm-hmm.
It was the church
Mm-hmm.
that brought us through.
That's
It
right.
was an essay written back in 1628 in Massachusetts by a gentleman named Cotton Mather.
Mm-hmm.
And it was called The Christianization of the Negro.
Ah.
And the question was whether or not they should give the gospel to the Negro.
Mm.
Whether or not they should give the gospel to the Negro. And the premise was because if they, the white people, got to heaven and God asked them, why didn't you share the gospel with the Negro? He said, well, you know, God might be angry with us if we didn't share the gospel with the Negro, so we ought to share some of it. The portions of the gospel that benefit us, we should share with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like Paul's writings about slavery and to obey your master. But Cotton Mather did not know that Paul, the writer of most of the New Testament, was a black man.
Right.
It's recorded in the book of Acts.
Mm-hmm.
So the premise behind the white Christian church was to give the Negro some knowledge of the gospel, as though they didn't have it before they got here.
Mm-hmm.
Give them some knowledge of the gospel so that they would remain subservient to these white people. So there was a racial bias in what they were doing, and the reason to do it was for their own self-aggrandizement,
Of course.
for their benefit according to their arrival in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Christianity in the West is not Christianity in the East.
Mm-hmm.
Christianity is not a Western faith. It comes out of North Africa.
Right.
Jesus spent a third of his life in Egypt. He wasn't hiding from the Roman authorities or the Jewish authorities in a white country. They were hiding in Egypt amongst the black people. But the church played such a pivotal role through the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s to bring us forward as a people. Reverend Milton Galamison of Brooklyn, Proctor, Sandy Ray, Bill Jones, and there were preachers throughout the South. People don't know that there was a gentleman shot in his driveway.
Oh. Mm.
Medgar Evers,
Medgar Evers.
who had a brother who was a pimp.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And
Yeah.
his brother had to leave the South. He went to Chicago and set up business in Chicago.
Yeah.
And he fought against the mafia in Chicago. But the ladies that worked for him had medical care back in the early 60s. He provided health coverage for the ladies working for him. Not only was he making money as a pimp, but he financed the work that Medgar Evers was doing. It was the brother who was a pimp that financed the work that Medgar was doing in the South. People don't know. It was the black farmers of the South that paid the bail for the students who came from the North in the voting rights campaign. It was farmers that mortgaged their property to bail the college students out of jail. I was
Wow.
blessed to have met Mrs. Schwerner at a dinner in celebration for the civil rights attorney. Oh man, I'm getting old.
74?
It was a white guy here in New York. He defended all of the radicals.
Long hair?
Yeah. Anyway, forgive me. But I was introduced. He said, Graham, this is Mrs. There was Schwerner, Cheney, Goodman, Mrs. Goodman. I said, good evening. And the guy said, Randy Predico, he says, her son was the Goodman from Goodman, Cheney, and Schwerner that were murdered in Alabama. This is the mother, this little Jewish woman.
Yeah.
And this is why we have to get beyond the color of the skin, because there are decent, loving people across the board.
Yeah.
Across the board. And I held this little lady who has since passed, and I said to her, thank you. Thank you for raising the kind of son that you raise.
A decent human being.
A decent woman. There were all kinds of people that fought to bring equality to the base level of this country.
Well, we as black people should understand that more than anybody, since we've been disqualified for almost anything that ever existed. You talk about sports, but sports, remember heavyweight boxing was the king. And you talk about Muhammad Ali.
Joe Louis.
He led, I mean, he was a year younger than me, 10 months. Now, I was just looking at old films of Muhammad Ali, and he led the way to freedom, man, and how to be a man. I mean, he was funny, he was good looking, he was pretty, and he changed all the barriers of what people or boxer look like. I mean, we had boxers before, Joe Louis, where he was quiet and humble, but Muhammad Ali was loud and in your face, a poet and braggart and everything, and he performed, and it was funny, and that was a way to be free. And he was insulted from the Olympic Games. He came home and couldn't be served at the luncheon counter. Right. He was top dog and with a medal. He threw his medal away. He was so insulted. But that's what happens to black people who live the American dream and go I mean, the same thing happened to me when I joined the Marine Corps. I was brainwashed to marching past a graduation, marching past the statue of Iwo Jima. I had tears in my eyes. I was first one in line and the only black. And I felt so proud of that. And then I got out of boot camp and I went to go get a beer with a bunch of other guys, and they told the other guys, no, we can't serve him. So they didn't tell me, because I came out of boot camp with a stripe on. There were only 2 stripes given out to a platoon of 75. Right. And I was one of the ones with a stripe. So I got respect from all the crackers. And they wouldn't serve me a beer. And I got mad when they took me outside and told me what happened. Said, we got to go someplace else. Well, I'm in South Carolina, so what do I expect? I'm from New York. I'm in the Marine Corps, got a stripe on my arm. They won't serve me a beer? So like Muhammad Ali, I was enraged. I'm living the American dream. I'm doing right. So that's what happens to us. We build a certain bitterness when it happens. But that didn't bother me. I just moved right on. And marched on. Because we have to realize that we are, I say this all the time, we're the spiritual people of the planet. We're the loving individuals. We got that God-centered in us. That's the only thing that got us through all this garbage. And what we're going to show now is Mother Z. Hopefully JT and Ashley can tune in on this. They still have time. But let's show Mama Z and homeland, my homeland, Harlem, and the goddess that lives in all our mothers. Mother's Day is coming up Sunday. The human gods, our mothers. This is done.
Ready to march for Mama Z. What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
Name?
Mama Z.
Say her name.
Mama Z.
Justice for?
Mama Z.
Justice for?
Mama Z. Mama Z.
Justice for?
Mama Z.
Justice for?
Mama Z.
Justice for?
Mama Z. Our streets.
Home streets.
Our streets.
Home streets.
Our streets.
No justice.
No peace.
Mamas, make some noise for mothers.
Mattered because her life mattered. That's so many people's lives she touched. I knew her personally, not just because of the National Action Network, because of what she did in the community.
Thank you for this day that we have with all of her friends surrounding us. Thank you guys for being here and showing the love that Yesenia showed to everyone in this community.
One thing I can say, even though I need a second and it's still a fresh wound to me, and me and my grandmother, I'm starting to learn more than I learned ever when she was alive and now. We have to stop the senseless gun violence. Senseless gun violence, and I think it's best you hear it from me because I'm here with her every day. I thank you guys. I thank you. Grandma, I know you're here. Watch me work. Love you.
She's speaking right through you, kid.
Yes, she is.
Yes.
Come here, Lonnie.
My grandma loved our shopping. Any of us got into anything minute, large, anything. She said, listen, you know, what? You said what? What they say? let me get our shop done. You know who I know? You know the people I know?
That's right.
She don't play about our shopping. So Al, I know you're not gonna play about her. Respect and love.
Let me say to the family, her grandson and her sister, Mama Z was special to all of us. She never wanted a big title. She never wanted publicity. She would feed the people in this neighborhood. She would give clothes to people in this neighborhood. Her sister said the day at the rally that she probably fed and clothed the people that ended up shooting her. And let us use this as a wake-up call to all of us that we've got to stop this gun violence in Mama Z's name. We need in Mama Z's name to start bringing our community to where we solve our differences in ways that are peaceful and ways that show our unity. And let this grandson be a symbol to all that have lost their grandmamas and grandfathers and mamas and daddies, that we've got to stop the bloodshed. Let's put our arms around this family as they put their arms around us. You gave us your grandmother. You gave us your sister. Now let's give y'all some peace and dignity. Let's pray. Dear God, we come, we worship you in different ways. But there's but one God. We ask you to give us the vision to see how we get out of this violence and this hate for one another. That in a moment's notice, that we lose the life you gave us. Give us the strength, even in these times of uncertainty, to know that you're a certain God. And give Mama Z her rest now. She worked in these dangerous streets.
Yes, she did.
She served.
Yes, she did.
And her community loved her for that. We thank you for the gift you gave her to us, 61 years. She never made us shame. She never made us have to make excuses for her. And we thank you for the gift you gave us, Mama Z. These blessings we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Life up.
Life up! Guns down! Life up! Guns down! Life up! Guns down! Life up!
Welcome. That puts us all to tears, especially Mother's Day coming up. Mama Z. Everyone loved her. You should have seen the funeral. I've never seen that. I haven't seen that many black men in church in a while. Maybe at 1 Corinthians every now and then, but this funeral was full of grown black men who were part of the legacy that she left. Are you still there, Ron? Is Ron still there?
No.
No. Well, I wanted Ron to make some comments about this, but he's gone. JT, you didn't happen to pop up? Or Ashley? Well, again, But what I wanted to say about Mother Z is that she touched the whole community. She was a Harlemite that loved her kids. All these grown men knew something about, I'm sure the shooter even knew her. That's why he turned himself in. See, this is black men understanding who our human gods are, our mothers. All men come from women. I mean, we come from mothers like Mother Z. I know my wife is mother to everybody. Bev, people walking. But Bev knows, she's probably smiling now. But these loving humans who give us life. I mean, me and Graham were talking about our mothers and how they died young. And how Graham was there when his mother died, and I don't know if I could take that. And my mother died at 53, and I was mad for a lot of years. I didn't think anything was right anymore. And so to turn me on the sour side, I get drunk and love to beat up people. Ex-Marine, and drinking and fighting was part of being a Marine. So I used to get drunk and pick on people. Bev even remembers that when I was a kid. But see, these are the things that we come up as black people, or all humans actually. So it's not, I won't get racist myself, because it's all human nature to love and hate, because we're all given as humans God and the devil. Now we see where Trump is, and these demons in the White House, and they're brainwashed to think that's the only way to go, because capitalism treats you to be greedy, self-centered, and get over. Now, black people have learned to get over syndrome. I'm doing something, want something for nothing. But we have to understand that you only get what you're worth. If you don't find your calling, then you're not doing God's work. And that's the creator of all humans. Until we as a people learn to be that loving energy that's natural to us, and the imposition of white supremacy is what's our downfall. When we fall into that trap of hate, it destroys the center of our being, our love energy. Now, all throughout my 84 years, I've tried. My wife remembers me when I was a teenager, and she remembers the first time she noticed me, I was swinging from a lamppost. I was singing in the rain. She'll tell that story.
Oh, man.
But I was 16, and I loved the movies, and I loved having fun. Of course, I always had Thunderbird on Fridays.
Oh, Thunderbird. Are you going back? You're going back. You got a nickel, I got a dime. Let's get together and buy some wine.
Yeah,
right?
But that was the energy, because I was shy, and that got me a little loose. And that was part of being a man back in the 50s. You had to drink and know how to handle your liquor. You know?
I never got drunk.
Yeah.
I had two uncles that died the same day.
Ooh.
Within an hour of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Not
From
yet
drinking.
40 years old.
From drinking?
Died from drinking.
Well, that used to be an escape for black people.
I couldn't see.
And that was planned genocide. They used to put bars on every corner.
Right. So until we sit and study the environment and get out of our environment. That's why it's important that children get to go different places to see how other people are living. And notice, we took kids from a school I was working at back in the 60s, we took them to another neighborhood. And we had them write down what was different in this neighborhood as compared to your neighborhood. And they noticed the type of stores. There weren't 5 churches on a block. There weren't 4 bodegas on the corners. They noticed the difference in the layout of the communities that white people had compared to where they were. But we're not teaching our kids to analyze things. We don't take our children different places because I can't give what I don't have. You know, and if I was not taught something, I can't teach it. And this is why it's important now. You and I have a point of reference.
But see, the whole thing changed when 80s and Reaganomics came in, because that was the planned genocide with crack.
Well, crack too. There's always a plan, and we need to be aware of that. There's always a plan to take us down.
Drinking was an economic boom. Crack was a destructive genocide, and that destroyed Harlem. It was gentrification from a drug-related problem. I remember the 80s, and I got into real estate in 85.
Right. But that's why we have to be studying on all fronts and recognizing what's going on.
Yeah.
Dr. Patricia Newton said that crack, the molecular construct of crack was analogous to the molecular construct of melanin. So that when black people used it, who was using crack? It was designed for black people. So as black people smoked the crack, those chemicals that we ingested, the body perceived it to be melanin. That's why people got hooked instantaneously. Understand the evil behind the people that developed it.
It was a mental...
It wasn't mental, it's physiological. The molecular construct. Don't believe it, it's what it is. They study.
Did you ever smoke crack?
Why the hell would I smoke crack? I don't even smoke cigarettes. I understand. I was informed by a medical doctor. It's not about what you think or I think, it's about what is going on, what these people contrive and do. Just like they put liquor stores in the community, just like they have these marijuana dispensaries out here. You and I know the smell of marijuana. They're not selling marijuana to these people out here. They might have 10% marijuana and the rest of that stuff is garbage. So our people need to know, again, you have a point of reference from the 50s. I remember the 50s, all right? But the thing is, these young folks out there here don't have a point of reference. They don't know anything. And because of their ignorance, I'm not saying they're stupid, but because of their ignorance, they're going to be victimized. And this is what we have to stand up against, because they're being taken advantage of by these corrupt, evil white people who are making money, capitalizing off the lives and the deaths of black people. Just as we don't make weapons, but they're pushed through our neighborhoods and given to people to think that because you have a gun, you're a man. Or to think that because you're wearing a certain kind of clothing that you're a man.
It's up to you to pull the trigger.
But this is the point.
I mean,
you put a 5-year-old behind the wheel of a car and let him go down the street, there will be a crash. You put a gun in the hand of an ignorant person, somebody's going to get hurt.
Well, the guns are going to be available. Everything's available to you. It's up to you to mentally...
Zoom is back.
Oh.
McHenry.
JT? JT's not there. Did
McHenry.
You watch?
This is the MC. Making mad. MC Henry.
We're talking about, what we're talking about is what corrupted Harlem. The crack epidemic, what destroyed the black imagery. Because we were doing well in the 70s. Affirmative action was going well. And most blacks, if you get up a scale and you went to the bars so you could drink more, Coke came into existence in the 70s. So the highfalutin folks, the people that were successful, it was the upper echelon that started sniffing Coke because of the fact that it made you drink a little better. You could drink more. The first time I was exposed to it, I was half drunk and somebody pulled me in the bathroom and gave me a one-on-one and I walked out and I could talk again. I hated to put something up my nose, but that was the first time. And I never did it. I didn't do it often, but that was one time I could see how people get addicted to it. So I didn't drink enough I didn't get drunk enough that I needed that. But that was the first start. But that was turned into something more
Sinister.
The crack came in with Reagan and the Cantoneses. They were selling guns and importing Sandinistas.
But they were bringing guns into California,
Yeah.
leaving them in the railway yards unlocked so that
So
the
the
Bloods and the
gangs
Crips would take them.
And then they brought the crack in there so they could fight amongst each other.
Bill Clinton was involved in that with George Bush. If you read Compromise Clinton, Bush, and the CIA, it gives a breakdown of how that was done. But all of this goes back even further in readings that I've done. FDR. FDR said the issue of marijuana and other drugs in the black community were not a concern. He said because it's just affecting them. And that was
Well, that's
FDR.
with dope and everything else in the mafia.
So we need to understand that it has always been a government program. It doesn't affect us. It doesn't affect us. It only affects them.
But it's for us to learn that's not what we're supposed to do.
No, I'm not saying that, but we need to understand some of the people that push these agendas to get people caught up in the madness.
And we sell drugs to each other.
And the drugs come from whom?
And they say, I don't know where it comes from. That likes the guns come from everywhere, but you don't have to pull the trigger. We were talking about Mama Z and the effect of Mama Z on Harlem, and how she was the nurturer of men, of her children, to bring them up to about love energy. That's what I want to talk about. Really, what gets us all out of this gangster mentality, the greed mentality. To have Mother's Day is coming up this Sunday. My daughter's the same age as your mother, and they do the same thing. They're both nurse practitioner. But see, this is the struggle of our women, our black women, who are nurturers, the ones that the first woman we love is our mommy. And we marry women that like our mothers. So this is our struggle as black men, trying to be manly and be ourselves or find our calling. And it's always a calling to love your woman, your mommy. So for Mother's Day, we want to explain Mama Z. And what did you see there?
Well, I just got a call this morning from a Pastor London, Diane London, who is Mother Z's Enseñamete's sister. And today,
yeah, that's right.
He called me,
sister's a pastor.
Letting me know that they were going to bury her today in Chicago, Illinois, and to keep her in prayer and some words for strength. It is never easy burying a loved one, especially when they go out from unnatural causes. The situation that that the Harlem community experienced was a woman who fed the community, who clothed the community. She actually, I read a report, the first woman in New York City to own a bodega.
That's right.
So she was a boss of a lady. She was a visionary, and then she was also an activist. She was out there on the street. I remember one preacher talking about at her prayer vigil that someone robbed her at her store one time, and first thing she said was, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do."
Yeah.
She was that type of person. Jim Jones spoke at her funeral. He was crying. They had many, back to school giveaways, and she did all kinds of things for the community. She was a huge part of the National Action Network. She came to our National Action Network convention this year.
Lifetime member.
Lifetime. So when she came to, when she passed, the National Action Network received all of these calls from all the reporters, just wanting to know more about her. And she was a woman that was about justice. She loved her some Reverend Al. She would tell people, "Don't mess with me. You know who I know. I know Reverend Al." And the National Action Network helped paid for her farewell. We helped pay for so that the family didn't have to deal with such a heavy load. It costs a lot of money to bury somebody. Like now I know why everybody gets cremated these days. However, with this case, she was going outside to stop a fight, as she always did, right? Her sister would tell me that they would always beg her to not break up fights. So she was a peacemaker, she wanted to see resolution. And especially in her neighborhood, she lived on 113 in Lenox, and between 113 and 114. And when, the stray bullet hit her, she was just going outside to make sure that her grandson wasn't on the street. And, for a while, no one knew who the killer was, right? And so the National Action Network, led by the Reverend Al Sharpton, said, let's do a prayer vigil. And he says, I want you to march from the House of Justice to her house. And in my mind, I'm like, well, that's about an hour walk. And, we got outside with Guns Down, Life Up, 100 Suits, all kinds of other organizations. And we chanted her name through the streets, Justice for Mama Z. And then we had the prayer vigil in front of the house, and we laid the wreath. We had candles. Rev had words. The family had words. And then the next day, the sister called me and said, the march worked. The march worked. I said, Pastor Long, what are you talking about? She goes, the man turned himself in after the march.
Yeah.
And, a lot of times people don't understand the power of unity, the power of lifting up your voice against injustice. And now we have a young man in prison due to this situation. He didn't specifically pick up the gun against Mama Z, but he picked up the gun against his own community. And unfortunately, many people in our community feel that they have to take on that challenge.
We have to go, Ron.
Say it again?
We have to go. I've got a minute.
All right. So so we know that that our community needs resources, not guns, and we need to figure out how to stop these arms from influxing into our state from down south. You guys are talking about heroin, cocaine, and all that other stuff that we know poisons our community intentionally. But I'm going to hand it back to you, Mr. Gilchrist.
Well, thank you, Ron. Well, the God in me loves the God in you. Stay tuned for more of the Gilchrist Experience. We'll come back to you with more information and love energy. And God is real. Stay tuned. God bless.
Amen.
Power to the people. And happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. God's a woman.
This issue is not just about what they did to this president of Harvard University, who is the first black woman to be president. It's about they used her as a scapegoat to fight D.E.I. We would not have to have D.E.I. if we didn't have D.E.N.Y. We would deny. D.E.I. was to make up for the denial historically of blacks, of women, of gays, of Latinos, and Asians. This man decided that he would stand up and say that taking out Dr. Guy is the beginning of taking out D.E.I. I want to come to his office and let him know that we will fight him. We said nothing when the fight was at Harvard, but now he's declared war against all of us. Civil rights didn't write your resume, but civil rights made somebody read your resume.